Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to tonight's bonus upload, and I have a very good bonus upload to end the evening with. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon and please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they really do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's bonus, shall we? Alright guys, today's upload is going to be based kind of in Virginia or around Virginia. A subscriber and researcher reached out and said, hey, I think the Henrico werewolf would be a very interesting upload. And I was like, yeah, I actually have something very interesting that kind of goes along that lines that actually no one has covered. Because, you know, in this kind of YouTube culture, a lot of people narrate other encounters. They really don't dig deep, but I do. And I found this really interesting because the connections are fitting. You know, I mean, we've hit the religious connection. But I'm going to touch on something a little different today as well, but still connected, because I think that, well, I'll explain later. Let's get into these though. This was published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, April 10th, 1903. A case where a dog had the head of a human woman. The one thing that acted more effectually than the appearance of county officers to eject Charles Cook, a well-known farmer from a certain Henrico property which he had been ordered to leave, was the fearful apparition of a ghost, a giant dog with a woman's head. The men pulled up at once and yesterday moved 10 miles down in Verona district, where he hopes to be out of harm's way. Cook is about 40 years of age and has for some time been renting Miss Freeman's farm in Verona. For inability to pay rent or other cause, ejectment proceedings were instituted, and he was put out. But he promptly moved back, and yesterday Deputy Sheriff Volger went down to order him away again. This time, however, Cook was moving out on his own accord. He had already started away. The deputy, he said that for several nights past, at about 10 o'clock, the premise had been visited by the most fearful apparition, a ghost, which takes the shape of a dog with a woman's head. It gets into the yard and scatters the milk pans and woodpile, uttering the most horrible noises. Upon some occasions it comes up to the door and rattles the knob. Cook showed the deputy 2 pistols he had armed himself with as a means of protecting himself against this ghost. Still, he wanted to get out of the place, and hence he was moving. He had chosen a house about 10 miles down in Verona district, where he hoped the ghost could not follow. An old white woman who lived in the same house with Cook declares that all he says concerning the ghost is true. The werewolf of Henrico County. It seems there's a werewolf, or at least that would be my guess, roaming around Henrico County in Verona. In the Confederate Hill Recreation Center, located at 302 Lee Avenue, Highland Springs, Virginia, 23075. It's a well-known local legend, although no one seems to know about its origins. It's only seen during the full moon, and it's been known to howl. It chases people, although it's never hurt or killed any humans. It's 6 feet tall, covered in a grayish white hair. It stands on its hind legs or can run on all fours. It's got a human-like body, but the face is like an animal, practically wolf-like. After reading the stories of the werewolf of Henrico County, I thought I'd contribute some odd experiences that happened to myself and my husband. My husband used to live with his parents on Old Osborne Turnpike, and their house is right next to the Battlefield Park. They have a large backyard unfenced with a field going back at about 100 yards and woods behind it, which continues into the park. When we first started dating, he was living there, and I would come and visit him and stay over some nights. We would go behind his house and sit on a picnic table and smoke because we couldn't smoke in the house. There were many nights, usually very late, at about 2 or 3 in the morning, when we would sit outside and hear awful howling noises. It sounded like maybe dogs, but I've never heard a dog make sounds like this. A lot of times it creeped us out so much we would just put out our cigarettes and rush back to his house. Another time in broad daylight we went outside to smoke and we were sitting on the picnic table. All of a sudden we saw a pack of white dog wolf things coming towards us. They weren't running or anything, just slowly making their way across his neighbor's backyard toward us. Those dog things came into his backyard and walked across the yard right in front of us. There was something not right about them. They seemed to be in some sort of trance. They didn't seem to notice us at all. They just walked right across the yard, across the field, toward the neighbor's yard, and up the other side. This experience is one of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me because we had no way of explaining where they came from, what they were, or what they were doing. Another experience has become kind of a family legend in my husband's family. This happened about 9 years ago. His family had a pet cat that they used to let outside, before this happened, that is. It was my husband's father's birthday, and they had let the cat outside a while before. They were all sitting around the table, eating birthday cake, when they heard something crash into the glass back door. They rushed to see what the noise was. And they found the cat lying on the ground, covered in crap. I literally mean crap. Apparently, my husband's mom made the joke about a bear had found the cat and wiped his butt with it and threw it against the house. That was the only thing they could come up with to explain the event. Needless to say, the cat is an indoor cat now. Lots of other weird stuff happens around there, but these are the only incidences that might be related to the werewolf. So, throughout the history of this Henrico werewolf, quite a few people said they encountered it. It was not violent. It didn't look like it didn't appear that it wanted to harm them. It acted like, one person described it and said it acted like a puppy as it chased them around. And then, of course, you have the naysayers. There was some ghost hunting group that said, well, it's not a werewolf, it's a Sasquatch, but it had the face of a dog. Well, that's because Hollywood has programmed our brain to call werewolves these shape-shifting things, which they're not. They're just Dogman. So it's just, conflicting, interesting stuff going around. This is the one thing that I was talking about that really quite possibly may have a connection. And it involves law enforcement. That's the coolest part about this one. Sheriff reveals 1966 UFO encounter and the death of dog. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Henrico County Sheriff A.D. Toby Matthews said he might not have believed it. On a bright moonlit night 33 years ago, Matthews said he saw a large unidentified flying object hovering silently over his Verena farm. He suspects whatever was inside this mysterious craft was responsible for snatching and snuffing the life out of his dog. I really saw the thing, I really did, Matthews, 65, said this week when asked to respond to a talk of his close encounter. And I've never seen anything like it since then. Matthews said he never publicly disclosed what he saw until now because he felt no one would believe him. He talked about his UFO experience this week after the Times-Dispatch learned that he had told the story 3 years ago to his former chief deputy during a Christmas dinner in Williamsburg. Matthews, who's fond of sharing personal stories about his life, was candid about the UFO experience, which he noted occurred during a time when such sightings were reported with some regularity by the Richmond area residents. During the summer and spring of 1966, when Matthews said he saw a saucer-like object hover over a cornfield near his farm, and then it disappeared in a flash. More than a half a dozen people, including 3 other Richmond area police officers, reported spotting similar objects hovering over the city, Henrico and Goochland County. According to the news accounts in the Times-Dispatch and the Richmond News Leader, one Richmond patrolman told the news leader that he chased the UFO in his patrol car. "If I live to be 100 years old, I will never forget it," said former officer William L. Stevens, Jr. in a July 21, 1966 news story. Matthews' UFO encounter had been the subject of gossip for years and recently surfaced again as the local election season draws to be a close. Matthews, a 2-term sheriff, is running for the Verena district seat on the Henrico Board of Supervisors. With just 4 days left until the general election, Matthews this week recounted his UFO experience with little hesitation. He said it occurred August 9th, 1966. After he had returned home from a psychology class at the former Richmond Professional Institute, now Virginia Commonwealth University. He was a road sergeant in Henrico Police and was living alone at the time at his farm in Charles City Road in the county's Glendale area. At about 10:30 that evening, Matthews said his German Shepherd, tied to a chain out back, began barking loudly, so he went outside to investigate. After turning him loose, Matthews said the dog, which he had acquired only 3 weeks earlier, ran to the edge of an adjacent cornfield. He was astonished at what he saw next. "I happened to look up, and there was this UFO right above the cornfield. It was just hovering right above the pole lines, about 200 feet in the air," Matthews states. The craft, which Matthews describes as white and about 30 feet in diameter, made hardly a sound and emitted no light. The object was about 4 to 5 feet wide at its widest point, which was in the middle. "It was just like the ones you see on TV," Matthews says. It was a bright moon that night, so he had a good look at it. Matthews said he ran back into his house to get a flashlight, and when he returned and shined it on the craft, the UFO turned slightly, emitted a burst of light, and took off like a bullet, just tremendously fast. Matthews said he rechained the dog and went to bed after the craft disappeared, got up at about 5 the next morning, and went out to check on his dog. He let it run loose for a few minutes, as his routine was, but the dog never returned. Matthews said he canvassed the area, but the dog was nowhere to be found. When he returned home, he was startled to find his dog lying motionless in the middle of the road just beyond his circular driveway. He was dead. He didn't have a mark on him, no blood, no singe, no nothing, Matthews recalls. It looked like he'd almost been sleeping, and whatever killed him, they had taken his chain, collar off, and dropped it on the shoulder of the road. I couldn't believe how it got off him like it did. Matthews said his neighborhood in those days was remote and largely devoid of traffic at the hour. I didn't see any cars come through at the time, Matthews said, and assured that his dog was killed by whoever or whatever was in that UFO. The dog let me know that they were there, he said. The dog's death remains a mystery, Matthews says. He buried the shepherd that morning in the meadow on his property. Matthews said the city officer who saw the saucer-like object near the state fairgrounds a month earlier had urged him to notify the news media about his encounter, but Matthews resisted. Matthews was living alone at the time, and there was no other witnesses. I wasn't frightened by it. It was kind of awesome, Matthews said of the object. Of course, back in those days, I was still in the military reserve, and it did not appear to be any type of military craft at all, because, number one, it wouldn't have done what it did had it been known military aircraft. In December of '66, Matthews told his story to the then Chief Deputy Patrick Haley and his wife, Brenda, during a Christmas party dinner at the Seafarers restaurant in Williamsburg. The way he told it was so specific, and he was dead serious. He was not joking, said Haley, who now is the Deputy Coordinator of Law Enforcement Accreditation for the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. We talked about this for months. Haley, who resigned abruptly after about a year as the department's number 2 officer because he believed incompetent leadership and dishonorable management practices by Matthews, created a host of problems with the sheriff's office, recalled Matthews telling him a slightly different story about the encounter. Haley said he remembered Matthews saying the craft had landed and emitted some kind of strong pull that drew him toward it. Although he managed to resist it, Haley also recalled Matthews saying that his dog, after was found dead, appeared to have been burnt and singed. Matthews, however, said those things did not happen, and he shrugged off how his strange encounter may be viewed by the public. Well, I did see it, he said. I really don't know what it was. Well, I believe him, and it's kind of shitty that the other guy, his buddy there, Haley, is kind of doing like a smear campaign because the political BS or whatever have you. But are these related? Are these Dogman, Sasquatch, UFO encounters and sightings related? I think so. I really do. We talked a little bit yesterday, or not yesterday, a couple days ago, about a possible theory that the Chimera, I said it the other day, Chimera, I sometimes occasionally say that. There was a subscriber who felt it or deemed it necessary to correct me. Thank you, but no thank you. The Chimera are demons and this and that. But, look at the ancient alien theories. And these things coming down, were they the angels? Were these things coming down, the angels fighting these chimera or demons that walk the earth? Who knows? But there's just something, man. Something is telling me that it's all connected. It really is. And I am not gonna stop until I figure out what it is. I mean, it's kind of like buying that lotto ticket and you scratch that one number off, but you got like 100 more, and you can't wait to just keep scratching. And that's what this is like for me right now. I know there's a lot going on in the community. One of my friends, my very good friend, is going to war. And I can't blame him. He's got every right to do what he's doing, to stick up for one of his friends who was publicly humiliated. But I'm staying out of it because this is just driving me friggin' bonkers, and I want to know. I got that scratch and it needs itching, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's move on to some other encounters in Virginia. There are white things in West Virginia, also known as white devils or devil dogs. White things are described as strange creatures with shaggy white fur. Some are described as having red eyes and large fangs. Some of them walk on 2 legs, while others on 4. And some are described as having more than 4 limbs. It is said that they sound like a woman screaming. They are also described as being very aggressive, but for some peculiar reason, when they attack humans, they don't injure them. Victims describe feeling the teeth rip them apart, but later, when checking, they're fine. Victims also report never being able to fight back. Bullets don't work, and their fists just go through air. The only known weakness is that white things refuse to go into cemeteries. The Sheep Squatch is said to be covered in shaggy white fur and makes screaming noises. It's attempted to attack people before, but most of the time just runs away. Other differences include that it has horns, distinct hands and claws, and apparently smells really bad. The first sighting was in 1929 when a man decided to take a shortcut through the woods on his way home from work. It was in the middle of the night, and all was well, until the man was confronted by a terrifying creature. It was shaped like a large dog. It was covered in long white fur and a big bushy tail. It had a large gaping mouth filled with sharp teeth. The creature launched itself at the man. He threw a lunch pail he was holding at it, and it just went right through the creature. The man ran, but the creature soon slammed into him, biting and scratching at him. The man tried to shove and punch at the creature, but his hands just went right through the thing, like it was made of air. Eventually, the man continued running, even though the beast kept attacking. He ended up running to a nearby cemetery. As soon as he fell near the place, the creature disappeared. Strangely enough, the man checked himself and found no cuts or bites. A second sighting in the 70s when a group of men were out hunting when they heard a sound like someone was screaming in anguish. Suddenly a white creature burst out of the bushes and tackled a man. The man tried to fight the creature and ended up rolling down a hill trying to get it off him. When the friends found him, he was on the ground crying, saying the beast had ripped out his guts. When the men checked his friend, there was not a scratch on him. One woman wrote that she was driving with her husband one night. They were in the area with no lights or houses. She looked forward and noticed a large white creature in the middle of the road. It was on all 4s, but when they got closer, it stood up and opened its large mouth to reveal sharp teeth. It then ran into the woods. Another person said they were walking in the woods near their home when they saw a white furred creature the size of a bear. The person quickly crouched down. They watched the creature for a few minutes before trying to get back into their house. The creature immediately noticed, stood up, and ran off. The person described the creature as being nothing like any known animal. Another woman spotted the white thing, more similar to a Sasquatch. She was house-sitting in the deep woods. She was reading at night when all of a sudden she heard commotion on the back porch. She decided to check it out, looked through the window, and was met with red, glaring eyes. The woman ran into the living room and turned all the lights off. She hid behind a chair and prayed for the creature to go away. Unfortunately, the creature decided to slam its palms on the window and scream. At one point, the screaming stopped, and the woman peeked around the chair to investigate. There stood a 5-foot creature, covered in white shaggy fur, staring right at her. It turned around and started messing with things on the porch again. Though at one point it started to slam on the door and mess with the doorknob. Eventually she heard it jump off the porch, and then complete silence. The woman ran up the stairs and hid, but nothing else happened that night. There have also been a good amount of these creatures attacking livestock. People have reported seeing these creatures ripping down gates to kill goats, pigs, and horse. There aren't many theories as to what these things are. Some people come from native culture and are warning when someone is about to die. Some people, they are just albino wildlife that are scaring people. Others believe it's possibly a new species entirely. Though whether or not the white things of West Virginia are merely albinoed bears or strange new species, it's up to you to decide. Gloucester County, Virginia, on October 3rd, 2020, between 2:30 to 3:30, a witness awoke to the sound of scratching near her bedroom window. She also heard a very loud, penetrating howl screech. She described the sound as rather deep, but the screech was similar to fingernails on a chalkboard. She said the sound was very uncomfortable and seemed to penetrate her body. She had 2 dogs in the room with her. One was a very large beagle, 50 pounds. The other was a mountain lab, 93 pounds. Both dogs seemed to cower, shake, and the hair on their backs stood up. The exterior floodlights kept coming on and off. She got up but didn't look out the window for fear of being illuminated by the lights. So she went out to the front door, sneaked around the house towards the backyard. When she got to the back of the house, she looked around the corner. She saw a large canine-type creature standing on its 2 rear legs. She said it looked similar to a wolf, was somewhat bronze in color, 6 to 8 feet in height, with a large head, brownish-orange eyes. The eyes either reflected the full moon or were luminescent. It had human-like shoulders, chest, and what appeared to be hands consisting of 3 claws and an opposable thumb. Its ears were similar to a German shepherd. When the animal saw her, it pivoted around, took 1 step bipedally, and stopped. It then hopped 3 times, turned towards her, grimaced, snarled, raised its head, and howled and screeched. She said the canine teeth were triple the size of a normal dog teeth. It also had 2 long teeth protruding from the bottom, like a wild boar. The animal then hopped toward the creek at the rear of her house. Its movements appeared to be freakish. She then heard a loud splash as it apparently jumped into the water. She ran back into the house and didn't come outside until the next day. The creature then hopped towards the creek at the rear of her home. Its movements appeared freakish. She then heard a loud splash as it apparently jumped into the water. She ran back into her house and didn't come outside until the next day. Initially, she didn't want to report what she saw for fear of ridicule. She knew her neighbor had paranormal experiences in the past, so she felt comfortable telling her, the neighbor who lives across the street. Now, a creature that I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. The Sheep Squatch is described as being as big as a bear and covered in white wool. It's said to have sharp teeth and horns resembling that of a goat. It's said that its paws are huge and resemble raccoons with large, sharp claws, and it had a long, hairless tail. People also report a horrible odor and 4 beady eyes. Originally it was called the white thing, but soon people started calling it Sheep Squatch. The only resemblance to the sheep is its white wool or fur. And really, its only resemblance to a Sasquatch is its size. In fact, it's covered with fur, similar small hands, horrifying odor, enough similarities to warrant a name. Although Sheep Squatch definitely does not have the same temperament as a sheep. The first 2 sightings were in '94. A man reported seeing the Sheep Squatch in the middle of the woods. He watched the Sheep Squatch eat mushrooms and drink from the creek before walking towards the road and out of sight. The second was reported by 2 children in Boone County. They were playing in their yard when they saw a large white creature in the woods. It was standing on its hind legs, which made it look huge. But when it saw the kids, it quickly ran away into the woods. Another sighting, reported in '94 in West Virginia near the TNT area, the area where ammunition was made in World War II. A group of women were driving slowly past it when Sheep Squatch came out of the woods and onto the road. It quickly ran off once it came into the headlights. The next sighting was in '95. A couple were driving down the road in Boone County. when they noticed a white creature in the ditch. When they slowed down to look at the creature, it leapt up, revealing that it was actually Sheep Squatch, and attacked the couple's car. They quickly sped off. In terror, when examining their car, there were scratches and dents where the creature had attacked. In '99, there were another aggressive attack. A group of campers in Boone County reported hearing bear noises just outside of their camp. Already terrified, they became even more scared when the Sheep Squatch walked into their camp. The campers reported that it let out an unearthly scream, and they ran away. As they ran, they looked back and saw it standing up and glaring at them. When they returned to their camp, it looked like it had been ransacked by wild animals. At one point in Mason County, 3 people reported seeing the Sheep Squatch. It was a cold, wintry night. They were driving to Charleston. They were on the road in the woods when they rounded a corner. The driver noticed a large white creature. In shock, he backed up to get a better look. His companion spotted the creature and promptly started screaming. The creature stood on its hind legs, locked eyes with the driver, then ran off. A little while later, 2 hunters reported that they ran across a huge white creature. That let out a horrifying growl. The creature then ran at them, growling, causing the men to run for their lives. The most recent report in 2015 in Falks Run, 6 people were camping out in the woods. Around midnight, one of the campers spotted a large white creature on a nearby hill. The camper then alerted the others, and then they noticed the creature running down the hill. A river was in between the hill and the camp, and the creature was just wading through it. When it came out of the river, it growled, but then a screech was heard from somewhere else in the forest. The creature then whimpered and ran away in fear. The campers promptly packed up and left. Some people theorize that it's a new species of its own, and others theorize that it's a new species of bear. Some people think it's a misidentified bear. Though, whether or not the Sheep Squatch is Bigfoot cousin, or simply an albinoed black bear, it's up to you to decide. Alright guys, what do you think Sheep Squatch is? I myself think Sheep Squatch and the White Thing of Virginia is a Dogman. Misidentified, of course, because the horns, I think, are the large pointed ears. Just kind of fits, if you ask me. Numerous encounters with Dogman in this area, so I don't even know. It just fits in my eyes more so than a Sasquatch or a bear. Maybe a crossbred bear with a Sasquatch. Wonder how that would. Alright folks, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's bonus upload to end the night with and start the week off right. Guys, I'd really like to thank you for all of your support. You guys are what makes this channel special. And without your support, this channel would not exist. To be honest with you, I really would just be talking to a mic and probably not uploading it. So thank you for all your support. And you guys really make the research and communication with others so much worth it. So with that being said, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. And God bless you all.